So I'm like, okay, I ought to be able to buy one of those pretty easy. Not so much. I took the gamble, spent the bucks. What can I say? What are we working on today? The 97 Nissan pickup truck. Quick background story. If you watched anything when I'd worked on this truck, you know about the cylinder and the valve and all this stuff that I did with that. Back when I got it running, a couple months I guess, I had to look at the calendar and see, but I noticed when I was under the hood, the brake fluid was just a little low. Wasn't bad. I said, well, let me top that off. So I topped it off. And I started driving it. Drove the truck, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, and the brake light popped on. I was like, well, is the park brake switch going off? Made sure the park brake was all the way in, it was off. I said, well, that's an indicator that the fluid's low, so let me go out here and look. So, long story short, went out there, fluid was down to the add mark. No big deal. Like, I looked at the back of the brake plates on the rear shoes. I didn't see any fluid there. Didn't see any fluid up under the truck anywhere, really. Just gave it a quick scan. It's like, well, if it does it again, I'll have to investigate. So, all right, move on another week or two. And I went to take my ASE exams, my master research. And that morning I went down there, no problem, ready to leave. And when I came out from taking my certs, brake light was on again. So I was like, well, crap. I knew I didn't have any fluid with me at the moment, because I'd used the last of it from the time before. Hadn't plenched it, had some at home. I said, it'll make it home. It's not leaking that bad. So I backed out of my parking spot and I picked up my phone and I start texting my wife, letting her know I'm done, passed test, fixing to be heading home. And I'm sitting there with my foot on the brake. All of a sudden the brake goes, slowly drifts away. I'm like, oh, this ain't good. I'll set the parking brake, hop out, and get up under it and look. And this thing has a load proportioning valve, which means the more weight you put on it, the more rear brake pressure it gives the rear brakes. Give you a little story on this. Had a Toyota pickup truck. It didn't have any of that. This was a late 70s. I think it was a 79 Toyota pickup truck. Short wheelbase, just like this truck. That truck was sketchy in the rain. If you weren't paying attention and being real careful, that truck would swap ends with you. I think Toyota probably had, by this point, figured all that out too. But what they did was they put a brake proportioning valve so you have less clamping on the rear brake shoes in an unloaded condition, so that, like I said, it doesn't swap ends with you. So anyway, I was not even really truly aware that this truck had that. But I poked my head under there and saw where the fluid was dripping. It had finally gotten bad enough it was dripping. But poked my head under there and looked, and I was like, huh, okay. It's got a load valve, not a leveling valve, but a load brake proportioning valve. So I'm like, okay, I ought to be able to buy one of those pretty easy. Not so much. Went to my favorite source, Rock Auto. They ain't got it. Son works at a major auto parts distributor. They can't get it. They see it in their system, but it's not available. So I go to parts Google. I start Googling it, start looking. I find some parts places that actually do have these valves, but they're knockoffs, aftermarket valves, and you can get them for 85 to 120 bucks, something like that. All of them made in China. I'm thinking, is that really the route you want to go? So I found one link that led me over to eBay, and it was Nissan. I have the part right here. It's an OEM Nissan part, and I'm gonna assume. I mean, I checked the eBay seller out. He had all good feedback. Looks like he's a verified seller, and it looks like it's truly a Nissan's parts dealer that's working through eBay. So the box appears right, the part appears right. But needless to say, I couldn't find out exactly where it was made until it got here. And let's see if I can find it again. Maybe actually on the part, I don't remember. There it is, found it. It's made in India, but it is a Nissan it's manufactured for Nissan at a Nissan manufacturing plant, but it's in India. It's $285. You know, at the time I didn't know it was made in India. I just knew that it was an OEM Nissan part, and I took the chance on it. And by the time I got it here, it's $300. So that's what we're doing today. Is we're installing this valve on this truck. Hopefully this part's is half as good as the part that was originally on there. This truck's a 97, so you know we're going on 24 years old. If that valve will last half that long, then okay, you know, I'll have gotten my money's worth out of it. It's a brake part. You know, I don't like to scrimp on brake parts, and I really didn't know anything about those aftermarket valves, so I took the gamble, spent the bucks. What can I say? So I've talked long enough. Let's get underneath the truck, and I'll show you where it is and what we got to do to get it off. Not much to it. All right, well there it is. You can see it's wet with brake fluid. Pretty simple little valve. And have two bolts come in from the other way. These are blind nuts mounted to a bracket. It's got a little piece stuck down there to keep the spare tire from getting involved with it. Hooks to a spring, goes to a fixed bracket that's mounted to the rear end. Everything's like 12 millimeter or 10 millimeter. Pretty well wide open. I should be able to get it without even having to mess with the spare tire. At least that's what I'm going to try. Any job you can do, the least number of steps you got to take, better off you are most of the time. So we're going to get busy and try to get that thing swapped out. Here's the old valve. You can see it's all cruddy and nasty. Here's the new valve. Took about 10 minutes to get it off. Not really anything to it. Brake line, brake line, brake line. I'm thinking this is your supply line, and these are your feed lines out to your wheels. I hadn't traced them, but that's kind of what it looks like. So anyway, once I get it reinstalled, I will go under the vehicle and I will show you a couple of pointers on getting it apart. New valve is installed. Try to move it around. Let it twisting and changing camera angles. See those? There's your three brake lines. Right up there, and up here out of sight, right on top, right there where that finger's moving, is a brake bleeder. You need to purge the air out of that valve, and you go out, of course, standard wheel brake bleeding procedure on the back of both wheels. No big deal. But here is a little caveat that I couldn't even find any information on in the service manual. This top hole is slotted, so this valve can go back and forth and change how that brake valve is adjusted and how it works. I looked at the old arm and I tried to match it somewhere close to it. It's kind of a little over halfway pushed that way. So I pushed it over, tightened it down, then tightened that one. And we'll try it, and if the rear brakes seem to be a little too sensitive, then we'll change the adjustment. What's the other thing I was going to tell you? Oh, right there. This right here. This is the isolator for the brake lines that come to this. If you're going to change one of these, if you'll take that loose, it gives you a little more play and slack in the lines, so that when you pull these two bolts out and you already have these lines loose, that you can kind of slide it down and rotate it off of the brake lines, and it'll come right off. Just don't get carried away. You don't want to get carried away bending and pulling on those brake lines, because if you don't bend them too much, they'll go right back together by hand. Mine did. So all we got left is the road test. All right, we're on for the road test. Well, let's see if we got brakes. Let's see if we can throw our cameraman through the... Whoa! Yep. You have brakes. I think I surprised my cameraman. I told him I was going to do a brake check. And again. Pedal holds firm, doesn't drift away. So I think they're fixed.
All right, guys, well, there you go. It's just a quickie video on the load sensing valve on the 97 Nissan. I believe this particular one goes from 93 till 97. And they changed body styles on this truck in 98, and they changed up the configuration a little bit. And according to what I found in the service manual, is there are actually two different style valves, and they mount in different locations. And it said load sensing valve A or load sensing valve B. This truck has the load sensing valve B. What the differences are, I don't know. I'm going to grab the box and I'll give you the part number for what mine is.
So if you have the truck that has the load sensing valve and it has the arm that mounts to the rear end and a bracket just above the rear end, that part number is 46400-56G04. And like I said, that was what was classified as B in the service manual. One arm mounts to the rear end, has a spring goes over, and the valve actually mounts to a bracket that drops down from underneath the bed, just behind the rear, behind and above the rear end. So, all that said, this is the first thing I've done since I've had the heart stent. First thing they haven't wanted me to work or do anything. So this is the first thing I got to get back out and do. Matter of fact, this was on the list for the day after I had the stent. I had planned to do this repair that week, but well, you know, apparently my body had other things in mind, and so we got a heart stent instead. I hope this is beneficial to somebody who has a 97 or 93 through 97 Nissan D21 pickup truck. I did not see a whole lot of videos out there on the load sensing valve. I did read a bunch on the forums where people say to possibly bypass them. I don't know if that's such a good idea. You probably could do it, but I don't know that you should do it. Strictly because these little trucks, they get squirrely in the rain, get light and want to swap ends. So there you go. Appreciate all my subscribers. Appreciate everybody coming back to the channel again. And until I can get a video out next time, why don't you go watch another one coming on the screen right now.